Our final speaker is Thomas Pedroni. Are there any more forms anyone has?
Hello, State Board. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Tom Pedroni, and I'm an Associate Professor of Curriculum Studies and Policy Sociology at Wayne State University. And one of the roles I'm very happy about is that I get to coordinate the programming for the hundreds of teachers, new teachers, who come through Wayne State every year. I think that they are poised to make a real difference in what we do in Detroit and beyond. What I wanted to speak to today is an issue that many of my colleagues behind me have spoken to as well, which is the 18-month period after the enactment of PA 436, with the Detroit Public Schools being under emergency management during that entire 18-month time, actually 57 months going backward. Superintendent Flanagan, I know that 4 or 5 years ago you had the fortune of meeting with Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. At that time, he felt very confident in meeting with you that that you were poised to make a real difference and really move the needle in Detroit. I know you were very proud of that. In fact, you had uploaded a note that Arne Duncan had written to that effect on the Michigan Department of Education website. And it may still be there, although I haven't been able to find it. I wanted to get it so I could actually show it, but I wasn't able to find it there. But what I want to do is mention some of the points about emergency management and what it's brought us over the last 5 years or so. I think that what we really need to consider is that it's time to stop implementing cycle after cycle of new faddish type reform, okay? It's time to stop implementing emergency management, state takeover district. Now the latest is to try to bring in this notion of one Detroit or one Newark, as it's called, a very faddish idea that Cammie Anderson has rolled out in Newark. It's been rolled out in other areas like New Orleans, which are seeming to bring a lot of chaos to a system and have actually led to large protests by families, because families are seeing actually that they have very little choice out of a reform that's meant to bring choice. So rather than to continue to revolve into these different faddish ideas as they come along, I would encourage you to return to some core principles, which are looking at research-based educational reforms, looking at the governance by people within their own cities, as happens in all of the successful districts across Michigan. They have governing school boards that have that authority. All of those things are, and also by looking to the professionalism of our teaching staff, and rather than seeing them and blaming them for everything we've seen, to quickly rehearse some of the most important points under emergency management. And I know that many of you are aware of these already. I'd like to point out that over the last 5 years, we've had declining investment in classroom instruction in Detroit schools, where we have gone from 56% of classroom, of total general fund revenues being spent on the classroom, where we're down now below 47% in the budget that Jack Martin most recently made. Our administrative costs are at an all-time high per student, and we were supposed to, through corporate style leadership, get more efficiencies in administration. We've seen the exact opposite. We have an annualized enrollment decline of over 11% that has continued and continues now under emergency management. And we have, most sadly, a growing achievement gap between Detroit and the state, where in 3rd to 8th grade on the MEAP, in every reading grade level, 3rd through 8th, and 3 of the math levels, there has been a significant increase in the divide between the scores of Detroit students and the Michigan averages. Now, there comes a time when all of us realize, or can come to realize, that we've made mistakes. I've made mistakes in my life too. And I think that we need to realize that our experiment in turning our backs on community governance and believing that the solution was, at least in mostly African American communities, taking away the right to self-governance, which has been enjoyed briefly since maybe the 1960s for most African Americans in this country, that isn't really where the solution lies. I think we've seen that pretty clearly. And also that the idea of blaming teachers and saying that they needed to be encouraged off their duffs through competition was not really the problem either, or even through high-stakes accountability measures that largely tell us where poor people live. None of those things have been effective. Not only have they not been effective, but they've actually worsened conditions. The final thing I want to say is what the people of Detroit need is not takeover. They need support. That should be the role of a Michigan Department of Education, is not to take away governance, is not to blame teachers or even parents, but to provide support. That's what you can do. That's what you should do. And it's time for it.